Oh, the red leather.
Very good.
Oh, never
Tim
ceases
and Alex.
to yeah.
He means lever. Just saying.
Leave it.
Oh. That's right. We need the American to English dictionary here. Yes.
Yeah.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good day wherever you are. Welcome to another edition of the Digital Download, which is
The longest running weekly business talk show on LinkedIn Live.
there we go. All right.
Get
Nailed
in.
it. So today we're asking, are you a podcaster? And if so, are you doing it wrong? We'll have a special guest, Greg Wasserman, to help us sort it all out. We'll talk with Greg about his framework for the full spectrum of activities podcasters should be doing before, during, and after hitting record. But before we bring Greg on, let's go around the set and introduce everyone. While we're doing that, why don't you in the audience reach out to a friend, ping them, and have them join us? We strive to make the digital download an interactive experience, so audience participation is highly encouraged. With that, Tim, please introduce yourself.
Thanks, Rob. Yes, my name's Tim Hughes. I'm the CEO and co-founder of DLA Ignite, and I'm famous for the fact that I wrote the book Social Selling Techniques to Influence Buyers and Changemakers.
Awesome. Thank you. Adam.
I'm Adam Gray. I'm co-founder of DLA Ignite. I'm Tim's business partner. I'm not famous for anything, but I'm delighted to be with my team and buddies here for another digital download.
Excellent. Thank you. Alex.
Hello, all. My name is Alex Abbott, founder of Sapiro. I have a little friend with me today who's doing the download. Her name's Honey.
Hello, Honey.
Hello, Honey.
Walkies.
She's a little bit lost because my wife is looking after my son's dogs in France at the moment, and she's normally by my wife's side, so she's the office dog at the moment. So she wanted to say hello.
Hello.
Well, hello, honey.
Honey.
And thank you, Alex. And myself, I am Rob Durant, founder of Flywheel Results. We help startups scale. And I, too, am a proud DLA Ignite partner. So, as I said, this week on the Digital Download, we'll speak with Greg Wasserman, a seasoned podcast consultant and people connector. Let's bring him on. Greg.
Hi, Greg.
Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Good early morning.
Yeah.
6:03 now.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you got here.
Wow, we don't have enough time for that. But so background for me is I was in the media space for about 15 years. So working with brands and agencies, slowly transitioned to partnerships. But the topic of this is podcasting. So I've sold podcast ads. Last company I was with, I ran 3 podcast listening platforms. So it allowed me a really unique perspective of the podcast space, working with the hosting companies, agencies, and individual podcasters. And today I'm the head of growth, partnerships, and community for an AI platform called Cast Magic. Started off as podcasting. It's now become a lot more than that. But once again, using my skills and knowledge to support podcasters.
Fantastic.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So let's start with a basic question. Greg, who should be podcasting?
Everyone.
Well,
Everybody.
Nice.
right off the jump. Okay.
Like
tell
you
us
said,
a little
easy
more. Yeah.
Next one.
Next one. Let's go.
Play tennis.
Everyone should be. I mean, the doors where I've sat in the perspective I've seen, every conversation I've had with a podcaster has basically been how this has changed my life. And you think about every person saying this has changed my life. Now, you could also look at it as like, it's like having a kid. You're like, it's the greatest thing. I wouldn't change it for the world, but it's a lot of hard work, right? So same exact thing. Podcasting can be a lot of hard work, but you can also make it really simple. I mean, technically what we're doing right now is pretty simple. you've got a system, we're recording, this is being broadcast live, and then you're going to be able to take this and put it out on YouTube, put it as an audio file, and then repurpose it all. It didn't really take a lot, probably besides getting myself up at 5 a.m, but it was pretty easy. And the doors that open, the conversations that happen, everyone should be doing it because it is great for so many purposes.
Yeah. I should tell you a little story actually, because I've spent kind of, a lot of years in sales as a sales leader, presented to large audiences, but the thought of doing a live broadcast scared the life out of me. And when I reconnected with these fine gentlemen, Adam and Tim, just under 2 years ago now, the thought of coming on this exact show gave me heart palpitations. and I guess 18 months forward, this show has been an apprenticeship for me, as Tim has said this week. And I'm now doing my own podcast, Walking Digital Corridors. We're now doing other stuff with Sales TV. And once you start, it comes, I wouldn't say it's addictive, but you just become more confident doing it.
It's wonderful seeing you, Alex. It's like taking a dove and letting it go. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's like taking a little honey-coloured dachshund and letting it fly.
Yeah. So what tips, Greg, have you got for those that think, wow, podcasting isn't for me?
I mean, I love your story, Alex. Like, that's how I felt. It's how I still feel doing these things. I'm like, hold on. I get no problem talking. But now people are actually going to be able to listen to me anytime they want. And like, this is out in the ether. I'm like, that was a little nerve wracking. But then you just realize, like, all right, it's just 5 of us having a conversation. And what's wrong with having a conversation that gets recorded? And now it opens up the door for, as you just said, being more comfortable being behind a camera, being a talking head, having these conversations, going like, all right, I've got something to say. Like, why shouldn't other people hear that, as opposed to the 5 of us having this conversation? So like, if you look back to Rob's question about like why everyone should be podcasting, it opens the doors. It makes you more comfortable. You learn. I mean, it's literally just another form of learning in that regards. It's addictive. So, I mean, I don't have any tattoos, but yeah, it kind of becomes addicting. You're like, I want to go on another show. There you go. You got the tattoos for me. I want to go on someone else's show and I want to share this story. And then every time I share the story, someone's asking different questions. And so I'm like, all right, you're making me think. So I continue to refine and continue to figure those pieces out. How's it any different than any other business? Or let's say you just want to do a fishing podcast. Let's say you're a real estate agent and you want to do a fishing podcast because you love fishing. What does that have anything to do with your real estate business? Well, it's lead generation. It's getting your name out there. It's getting you comfortable continuing to tell the story, which you kind of have to always be doing. So there's so many values to it. I mean, we can go through the whole spectrum here, but yeah, I'm a huge proponent of podcasting. The biggest thing though is stop thinking yourself as a podcaster and start thinking yourself as a brand. That is what I stand on, because that is a big piece. Podcasting is for the most part, everyone thinks about it as just downloads. You're like, all right, how many downloads am I getting? And it becomes a vanity metric. But if you're a brand, if we think about this, the digital download is a brand, it then becomes a place that lives live. So I'm literally seeing you got messages coming through here live. It's going to live thereafter as you guys disseminate this to whatever platforms you guys are going to do. And then I can start repurposing this. That's what I enjoy about the tool I work for, Cast Magic. We'll literally take this audio recording and create the titles, create the show notes, create the social post, a newsletter, blog. You're like, oh my God, look at all the tentacles that just this one recording gave us. All these little touch points. So if you start thinking about that, you're a brand. You want to be a brand that's everywhere, as opposed to just, hey, I just need more downloads.
So I want to dig into that a little bit. You mentioned downloads are a vanity metric, but isn't that how downloads are measured? So why are downloads the wrong metric for success for a podcast?
It's limiting. So it's not a matter of the wrong measure. it's the problem is if that's the only measure you're thinking about. So if I'm only focused on how do I get more downloads, and I'm obsessed with I need more downloads, I need more listens, I need more audio consumption, you're missing out on all the other ways that you can take that content and leverage it as a brand. Once again, newsletter, right? So how many people are signing up for your newsletter? Do you even have a newsletter, right? That's the first issue, right? Take a step back. Do you even have a website? So are you driving people to call it your Apple? Hey, listen to my show and here's my Apple link. And like you have no content on a website. All right, you're missing out on an entire brand story for you. If you're driving people instead of to Apple to your hosting company's website, once again, you're giving them all the value. So why aren't you taking that for yourself? If you go further, let's see here. There's lost my train of thought here. Have your website. Make sure. So the three questions that most people always ask me on the podcasting side was, how do I grow my audience? How do I get distribution? And how do I monetize? So if the third question is what everyone's focused on, monetization, and monetization is just they're thinking downloads, well, they're missing out on all the other ways that you can monetize your actual content. But get the foundations right first. Have a website, have a blog, use social posts, get your content all these other places. And all those other things can actually be ways that you monetize, as opposed to how do I get a $15 CPM of some mattress company read during my my podcast?
I mean, monetizing it is. Let me talk to us about the ways you can monetize it. I'm assuming you're talking about subscription versus advertising revenue.
I mean, you can monetize it so many different ways. Let's say let's go here and say you chose me as a guest for whatever quality and value I had to bring to this show, besides just what I have to
We
say.
had an opening.
You didn't, yeah. There you go. But you can be strategic on who you're picking for coming onto your show or the topics that you're choosing. So guesting alone becomes a great way to monetize. It becomes a monetization in terms of like, depending on what your business is, I'm like, I'm going to choose certain people to come onto my show. And based on that, I'm either looking, they're a customer of mine. I'm looking to break into their market. I'm looking to learn from them. I want them as thought leadership. So like, in a sense, you're monetizing just by thinking about the guest that comes onto your show. Even if it's a prospective client, you're like, great, I'm going to have them on my show, build this relationship, and then months or years, whatever the time frame may be, we build this rapport. They're on my show. I gave them a platform, and I'm able to theoretically monetize that relationship now by having them as a customer. I mean, that alone is taking you well beyond just a download standpoint. Newsletter, packaging, your social post. So instead of just, I only want to put ads into my show, how do you package your brand and go, you know what? Yes, I only have 500 downloads, but this is my entire brand. Your brand now becomes a sponsorship package as opposed to a $15 CPM host read ad within there. And as you alluded to, Alex, like, yeah, you can go ahead and do the sponsored content route. So what if we had this conversation went far longer than what most people are going to get access to live. And then we take some of that content, that the juices that came out of it, and put it behind a gate and saying like, hey, you guys want the additional information or you want the additional stuff that we talked about? It's all behind the paywall, and you can do that. You can do the standard Patreon route. You can take this content and make it as an ebook and sell that as an ebook. Like, there's so many other ways you can think about monetizing besides just downloads.
So when we think about podcasts and monetizing, very often people think the immediate cash return of podcasting. I'm hearing you say that if you don't look at the immediate cash return, but look at the bigger picture, there are more ways to go about it. And that leads me to ask you to tell us a little bit more about what you mean by a branding opportunity, branding for the digital download or branding for the individuals? What are you alluding to there?
Let's see. There are a couple questions there. The end of your question. No. The end of your question. Yes, both. So the branding of digital download as well as the branding of the four of you. I mean, it's no different than, in a sense, you've got four hosts. Normal show, you've usually got two co-hosts, right? So why wouldn't this be able to be branded? I mean, Alex already said he's starting his own podcast 18 months later. So he's literally been using this as a training ground for getting comfortable doing this, talking about different things, and then going like, you know what? There's things that I want to say that I have not been saying during digital downloads. I'm going to create my own show and do that. Well, in order for him to do that, he had to start branding himself and being known here to go like, all right, I want to do that. So like, yeah, you guys should totally be using this as a branding platform, and repurposing this content and the conversations you guys have, besides the difference between levers and levers, right? So, or
Yeah.
Dachshund, and I don't even know how you pronounce your dog.
Dachshund, miniature
Dachshund.
Dachshund.
There we go, Dachshund.
Aluminium.
Yeah.
Illumian.
And then, so thinking of yourself as a brand. So back to your first question, Rob. Like, thinking of yourself as a brand. People that started brands. Let's look at Coke. Coke wasn't like, all right, like they started selling a product and they created this formula, and then it's become this massive top one brand, right? But like, they play a long game. You're like, I believe in this product. I know this has something. I'm going to try selling it. Well, for podcasting or thinking yourself as a brand, you're playing the long game. Most podcasters, I mean, it's been shown, is like, you don't get into it to make money, but you get into it because you realize you have something to say and the long game of what that provides you. There's so many countless examples of people who wrote articles, and then 3 years later, that article was indexed, someone found it, and a company reached out to them going like, hey, you wrote this great article, would love to talk to you. I mean, that's the value that you get from a podcast, whether it's discoverability of that episode later on, your blog, your newsletter, like all of these things are playing the long game. And if you play that, your riches, it compounds. It's the compounding effect. I guess that's the way to think about it.
So I obviously we're sold on this. We're regular podcasters. Some might argue too regular in terms of our podcasting. But for lots of people that are watching, I think that they forget that they have to start somewhere. It's like we talk to people in the social space and they say, well, it's all right for you. You've got 1,000 followers. Well, we started in the same place you are, with 0. And, we've built that up over time. And so people will watch this show and they'll go, yeah, but you guys all seem very relaxed on there. And I'm not relaxed when I'm in front of the camera. So I guess, how do people get started? And secondly, because everybody has self-limiting beliefs and everybody thinks, I'm going to make one mistake. And, there's 975 million people on LinkedIn and they're all going to start knocking on my door to punch me if I make a mistake. So what's the worst that can happen if it goes wrong?
Oh, that's a good one. I'm going to do it. I said I wouldn't do this, but I'll do it. Everyone likes to do the comparison to Joe Rogan, right? And I said I wouldn't do this. I hate the comparison, but I think it's worth noting based on the comment you just said. Everyone's like, I want to be the next Joe Rogan, or I'm trying to be that. It's like, let's stop and remember, where did Joe come from? He was an actor. He started Fear Factor. It didn't start, but like he got a huge break with Fear Factor. So the Joe Rogan we know that's making $100 million a year with Spotify and this loudmouth, great conversations he may be having, he started somewhere, Hollywood. So he, just like Alex, used his 18 months of refining his craft and getting a conversation going to go like, you know what? I'm ready for my next break. So yes, you got to just start somewhere. For him, started acting, started just interviewing. So think about this as you got to start somewhere. How to do it? Put a mark in front. We're doing it right now. You guys, I don't know what the conversation was probably like when you guys decided to do this earlier, but like, you guys, we're all across the country. Let's have conversations. I'm really interested in having a conversation about digital marketing or whatever we're talking about. That's literally what to do. And then you guys just have these conversations. Are people upset about, the talking head? You got to get out of your head. And as you said, Adam, limiting beliefs, we all have them. So lean on people. Actually, I think my LinkedIn post this morning was literally, I did a breathwork class last night, and tapping into the breath of realizing, like, whatever limiting beliefs you have, the power you have, like, if you start doing certain things, you'll get more comfortable at doing it. And that's really what you have to do, is just start. You have a story to
I
tell,
think
go
that's
for it.
it. You've nailed it there. Just start. Because I know when LinkedIn announced that it was, and it was LinkedIn starting to produce offer the live broadcasting platform, that was the thing that kind of catalyzed us to take action. Because before it had always been, oh well, we're going to do that at some point in the future. And I think Tim called a meeting and he said, look, LinkedIn have just started doing this. I think we should do this thing. And we all just went, yeah, let's give it a go. We've no idea what we're doing, but actually it doesn't matter to begin with, because there ain't going to be anyone watching. So, we'll just go on. We'll just see how it works. And it's become, for us, such an, I mean, you said about it being addictive. I wouldn't go as far as to say it's addictive, but it's such an enjoyable part of the week. We all look forward to Fridays, to coming on these shows and just having a bit of fun. We don't script it. We just chat like we would if we were meeting in a bar somewhere. And invariably, the guests that come on at the end, and this is not a prompt for you to do this, at the end, when we switch it off, the guests will go, oh my God, that was fantastic. I really enjoyed that. Can I come back again? Because it was so relaxed and we just kind of went with the flow. And I think that we, at the beginning, we were very aware of our limitations. So if you're a newsreader, you're very good at reading from an auto cue. If you're a regular human being, you're not. So don't read from an auto cue. Just talk, because that's something you can do. And it's like when people have their profile shots taken for their social things and they're standing there like this. I mean, if you're not a model, you look like an idiot when you do that. So take a photo of you laughing or talking or doing something that makes you look human. And I think playing to your strengths is a key thing, isn't it?
We have a couple of comments from the audience I want to bring on. We have Robert Sefman. Compounding is usually so underestimated. I think that's in reference to something you were saying earlier, Greg.
100%.
And Andrew,
what's the thing where they say if you improve 1% every day, you end up improving? Is it something ridiculous like 17,000% by the end of the year?
Yeah, a lot.
A lot. Compounding.
Yeah, a lot. Math, way too early. And then we hear from Andrew Slesser, having 1,000 followers doesn't mean you have an audience unless the topic you want to discuss has something of interest to your followers.
Oh, I'll take that one. So when I was,
I'll let Tim answer that one.
Yeah. Go ahead, Greg.
So when I was selling ads, we had someone, we had a podcaster who was famous. She had 1 million followers on her Instagram. I could not get 1,000 downloads an episode from her show. Now, why was that? She wasn't promoting it. She was like, look, that's your job to go ahead and promote. So I'm just going to continue to use my Instagram, and that's going to be whatever my normal platform is. It's like, hold on. Like, you got 1 million followers and you're trying to get a story out there, go use that. Now, to the point of like having followers doesn't mean someone's going to listen. But if you're not even using your platforms to promote that you even have a show, goes back to the whole repurposing of content. Like, what was it? Adam, you mentioned something that really struck to me. It's like, just put the mic in there and go with it. Most podcasters I speak to that make it past like a year, call it 50 episodes, they're like, I don't want to listen to my old episodes. Like, I was still trying to figure it out. It sounds terrible, whatever. It's like, yeah, but the joys about that is if you repurpose that content as a blog, as a newsletter, as an article, as social post, no one's listening to what you said. They're only hearing some of the good words and thoughts that came out of that. And I guarantee you thoughts came out of that were valuable, even if the sound quality was terrible, even if you like fumbled your words, like there was something of value that came out of those early conversations. There's back to the compounding, like you can't put a price on just doing it, getting this value, and then seeing where it goes. And like you're like, great, I'm not going to listen to these back catalogs. I'm just going to promote the content that came out of that. And that becomes the goal that continues to fuel your brand.
Wait a minute, Greg. Am I hearing you say that nobody actually has to listen to my podcast and it can still be valuable?
I mean, yeah, that goes back to the whole stop thinking about just downloads. Like if you stop thinking about one metric, I needed people like, let's say I have no clue how many people are watching this right now, but like you're gonna have this conversation regardless.
Nobody, Greg.
No, I know at least some people that are commenting, right? You know, so you could have just done this as a normal conversation, made it closed and have no one come here, and then put it out there and go, great. If people are going to listen, they're going to listen. But hopefully you then turn this into your blog and your newsletter. Alex thinks about like, all right, how do I build my brand based on the thoughts and questions I came out? Or maybe you're going to create your own blog post based on something that happened out here and go like, these are my 2 cents. Like it's all the value that came out of this conversation, which is really what it is, a conversation. Now, I know I'm very specific to a interview style, a conversational kind of podcast, and there's so many other variations of podcasts, whether it's sci-fi, scripted, or whatever the case may be. But like, yeah, it's a medium that allows you to extract conversations, value, thoughts, and disseminate it in other ways beyond just the audio.
So we should probably turn this into a murder mystery show instead.
Adam did it with the guitar in the conservatory.
Ooh.
The guitar string.
Yes.
With the guitar string in the conservatory. But actually, something that I think is quite interesting about where we've got to with our behavior here, and you talk about repurposing content on blogs and podcasts, and and actually, the problem we have is that we have too much content now. Because we come on a show like this, we don't have to cut this up to make something from it. Because all of us are sitting here. I mean, Tim's the best example of this. He's always got his notebook next to him, and you see him disappear off the screen as he's writing something down. I'm going to write a blog about that you just said.
It's the tweets for afterwards.
But all of those things, we've now got into the mind space because we've been doing this for so long that we're each sort of like a content factory. So how many Tim talks have you done? So Tim does an 20-minute interview with interesting people, and he's been doing it for some time now. How many have you done now, Tim?
So I started it on the 22nd of July 2016. I'm just about to pass the 400th.
400 video podcasts. That's remarkable, isn't it?
And I think the interesting thing that Greg said, there's a couple of things that was, first and foremost, I learned so much. You get so many interesting people come on, and I've learned so much. It's been fantastic. But of course, they've not all been live streams because we didn't have the technology.
Mm.
And it wasn't just one person 400 times. You've had
no. Yeah, it was my mum. I've interviewed her 400 times. The only person I could get to come on. So I mean, in terms of the other day, we run another podcast, and I needed to get some people on it, and the people that need to come on it is my ICP. So my the person I need to target, and I got 6 meetings in an hour.
Wow.
You can't do that with cold calling.
No, you can't.
You can't do that with advertising. You can't do that with spam email. You can do it with a podcast.
Well said.
It goes back to the first way of monetizing that I talked about, from a guesting standpoint. You literally go like, all right, I'm going to find my ICP. They're going to be my guest in my show. And if you cold call them going like, hey, let me try and sell you, or hey, I'm Tim, whatever, they're going to be like, yeah, another sales call. But if you're like, hey, I would love to have you on my podcast, most people I'd say most don't ask, well, how large is your podcast or how many downloads you get? Most don't ask. They're like, great, you're going to give me a platform that I can come on and we get to have a conversation. Sure, I'll do that. Yeah. I mean, look, you asked me to come on here and you're like, we need a guest. I'm like, sure, I'll come on.
Yeah. So we always do a thing in the so Andrew Slessor always joins us, and one of the things that we do is that we say hello and wave to him, and he waves back. But of course,
Hi,
we
Andrew.
can't,
Andrew.
Hi, Andrew.
Yeah.
Andrew,
He's waving now. We just can't see him.
Yeah. As someone that has watched quite a few of Tim's talk shows, they have given me a better education about not only business but life than I could get anywhere else.
Thank you, Andrew.
So, yeah, we end up with raving fans too. Well,
But
that's the
Andrew,
royal
you
we.
bring
Tim
up a
ends
great
up with
point.
raving fans.
Andrew brings up a great point. Andrew's connected. I mean, I don't know if there was a past, but like he's connected to you as a host in this show. That is also the value that we provide. Like having your conversation in a vacuum limits the opportunity for others to go, I like you. I like what you have to say. I'm going to tune in. And even if I can't tune in every morning, as we know, like 6 a.m. Yeah, this is my first one. But that doesn't mean I'm not able to consume your content, whether it's a re-listen or I want to read your blog. Like you are creating that audience, the connection. And once again, as my post said this morning, like you're not for everyone. And so those people that want to gravitate to what you have to say or the way you say it will. And those that are like, Greg's blowing smoke or I can't stand his voice or whatever, it's like, great, then they're not for me. And that's okay. And you accept that.
But,
Yeah, I think that's
but Greg, the great thing about that is its qualification.
yeah.
So one of the problems that you have in sales is that people are running around trying to chase deals which they'll never close because the person doesn't like them. But what you've done is you actually you've taken all the people that you don't like and they're over there, and all the people that you do like, you can go and sell to them.
100%.
What efficiency savings? Sorry, Alex.
Well, you kind of said the same thing, really.
Okay.
I was just going to use slightly different words. It's that's one of the most difficult things I think salespeople that I talk to. It's one of the most difficult things they struggle to get their head around because they've spent so many years trying to sell to everyone within their territory, whether they like them or not.
If we go down the sales route, so one other passions pieces about podcasting that I love and I didn't understand and I still don't is as a salesperson, most of the time you get a white paper and a case study and you're told, go email this, go cold call, go tell people this is what our company is doing. I mean, what buyer wants to buy that way, going like, oh yeah, that's a great case study, I'll go talk to you. Like, no. But if your company has a podcast and you brought an ICP on there, most likely the person that I'm trying to sell to is also the person that's on your show, and go, great, here's a quote that a person in your industry that you probably care about said. Happens to have been on our show, but I'm not advertising the fact that it's my show. I'm saying, like, look at what Tim said. Here's a great quote. That's probably going to open doors. And then go like, hey, here's listen. So the fact that as a salesperson, companies have this great opportunity and a resource at their fingertips to fill their content pipeline, to stop thinking about just white papers and case studies, but going like, how do I get the right people on my shows, repurpose the content, give it to my sales reps, my customer service rep, and my marketing team. And now, I mean, Tim's going to love this one. And social selling, go like, great, all 50 of you in the company, go blast this on LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever your social medium channel is. And it is great quotes that came from people that want to buy from us that you can go sell. That becomes so much more powerful of a message than, hey, John, I know you have this problem and I have the solution for you, so you should talk to me. Yeah, that's not happening. We all know that.
Yeah.
Greg, what I heard you just say is, as a salesperson, if you are not finding great quotes from thought leaders in your industry, quotes that will help you open doors, quotes that will help you sell, use a podcast to facilitate the production of such quotes.
100%. I mean, it's what I used to do before the invention of a tool like Cast Magic would be go out there and find interviews, find podcasts, find articles that my either ICP or the target person I'm trying to reach has said and done, and you use that going like, hey, I loved what you said. Like, what is it? They train you, go look at a 10K. And so, you know, in your email message, your cold outreach going like, hey, I know these are your issues because I read your 10K, whatever it may be. Like, sure, that's great. The elite are probably doing that. But yeah, going and looking at a podcast and leveraging the quotes, or whether it's your own company's or someone else's company, and pulling that and extracting that, that's gold. That goes to, once again, the whole value of podcasting, once again, treating it as a brand, and the brand that can be everywhere. And how do you repurpose that? How do you think about how do you leverage that? And going back to the earlier part of the conversation, how do I monetize? Well, that podcast for my company now just created 50 conversations with 50 ICPs. They created blog posts that now makes my company a thought leadership. Like, there's so many different ways you can go down that path. Or you can go like, Tim's the CEO of this company. We want to make Tim the thought leader of this company, and he's trying to use this as a how do I get hired for speaking? Like, there's so many different ways you can leverage this to build a brand, as opposed to I want more downloads.
Yeah.
So, go ahead, Alex. Oh, or was that Tim? I'm sorry.
It was both of us. Tim, after you.
I'll go. I was going to say, I was just sorry. And Adam and I had a meeting with the CEO of a big software company this week in London. And,
Congrats.
And you know, we got the meeting because of compound interest. And you know, at the end, I said, "Would you like to come on my podcast?" And he went, "Yes, please." So he emailed me 2 days after and said, "I'd love to come on your podcast." So I just emailed him back and said, "Yeah, let's have a call." So I got a second call with the CEO. I mean, you know, how difficult is selling today? It's not. It's so easy.
But it's only so easy.
Put that on Twitter. That quote right there. How difficult is selling today? It's not.
Isn't.
It's so easy. That'll drive downloads.
It's only easy if you relax into it, isn't it? You know, the beauty of the way that we sell, and I mean us, you know, this methodology for selling is the fact you do loads of things you like. You get to chat to loads of interesting people, and loads of them buy from you. You know, that's easy, and that's really pleasurable. And absolutely the reason we're doing it is because we didn't do the example that you did, Greg, which is, hi, you know, do you want to have a look at my product because it can really help you? No, nobody wants that anymore. Nobody wants that anymore. People want to buy from people that they feel an affinity and a friendship towards. And these platforms give you the ability to find those people amongst the millions of people out there, the people that like you.
What do they say? Trust is the new form of currency, right? So
Yeah.
How do you build trust? Not by cold emailing someone, but having a conversation. I mean, that's why my brand platform is life is about time and relationships. You have no clue where one conversation today is going to take you in the future. It's taken me years to, I guess, build the compound interest of people going like, oh yeah, you're not just some young kid who actually does have value. I'm like, all right, I'm a little older now. That has more merit, but like, that's what I've been saying this whole time. Like, I don't know where I was going to be in my 20s, let alone where I'm going to be in my 60s. So how about a conversation today? And that's the joys of, once again, what a podcast can give you. To have 50 conversations, or Tim's 400 conversations, and see where those things go. Eventually, maybe we work together. Maybe I refer someone to you. Maybe you're like, hey, you had someone on your show. Can you introduce me to that person? You then become, as Rob and I've talked about, it's who knows you, right? As opposed to, did I get that right? No, I'll let you quote it, Rob. Yeah, I screwed it up.
It's not about what you know.
There you go.
It's not about who you know. It's about who knows what you know. And your job is to make sure more people know you for what you know.
There you go.
Mic drop.
Thank you.
There we go.
So back in 2016, I went on a podcast in April, and Adam and I had just started the business. July 2016, person phones us up and says, interested in what you're doing in social selling. Can I resell your program? So I rang up Adam and said, someone's asked to resell our program. I've never thought about that before. And Adam said, no, I've not thought about that. That's quite a good idea, isn't it? We could have a whole bunch of resellers reselling our program. And Adam and I said, yeah, let's do that. And we did.
Rest, as they say, is history.
And we did, and the rest is history. And now we have a whole bunch of resellers around the world. Now, that came about, and that business model that we run, they're kind of like franchises, but it's a if you understand franchises, but it's actually a resale model. That business model came about through podcasting and purely through the compound interest of that, and someone listening in, and then putting an inbound inquiry into us.
So what I gather out of that is you found a audience member who reached out to you that you didn't know existed, that they decided to open a door and communicate. So the conversation went from just the two of you talking to like, hold on, there's other people out here that I have no clue who they are. So I'm going to engage with my audience as well as just as my co-host or my guest. And they're going to give me ideas that I didn't even know that were there. Hold on. So now you're saying podcasting allows you to actually have community engagement, ideas outside of the ones that you were just having. So there's even more value to just getting a mic in front of you and having a conversation. Like I said, there's back to your original question, Rob.
There's more, Greg. So Adam runs a podcast on Friday afternoon UK time called The Album, which is where he spends an hour talking about a particular album. So he started off with Fleetwood Mac Rumors, and so Andrew Slesser, who basically comes on here, he's been on Adam's podcast.
Yeah, a number of times.
So we've taken the audience from the digital download and actually then brought them in to somebody right at the bottom, Rob, Leah Smith. She's been on here, the digital download as well. She was an audience member, and we then brought her in. And the other great thing is that she tags somebody to come and listen. I mean, this is beautiful.
Hence why treat yourself as a brand, and a brand does so much more than just downloads.
But I think that circling around to that, I think the problem that many people have is like when they're trying to develop a relationship with somebody that could be a prospect. They develop a podcast, and it actually changes from being an educational, entertaining thing to being a sales pitch. And we are really careful that we try to make this a no pitch zone for us primarily. Obviously we're giving a platform to guests to come on, and because they talk about what they do, there are elements of pitch in that. But we try so hard to steer this conversation away from what it is that we do. But, we're quite happy to bang our chests about our belief system and saying, this doesn't work and you need to be doing more of this. But never is it a sales pitch. Because actually that's not what the audience have come here for. The audience have come here to learn, to meet new people, to be entertained, and to be part of a community where Andrew leaves a comment and then someone else comments on his comment, and then someone else comments, Robert's comment, someone comments on it. And, it's that sense of community that is again, a really valuable thing. And we're not part of that conversation. We're just facilitating that, which is lovely.
So let's go deeper into the community. This is what I love about the podcast realm. They call themselves community, right? So it is not a hold on, your show is too similar to my show, we can't work together. It's like, no, literally the podcast community is so supportive. It's so rising tide raises all ships kind of standpoint. So you go on someone else's show, they come on your show, it's cross-pollination of your audience and so forth. Community does what they do. Like, that is another value and love about it. But also, like you're saying, like the community of who's listening to you, how do you engage? This also then, let's say there's 10 ICPs. 10 ICPs that you want to go after, Tim, but you have no clue that they're actually listening to your show. That's where you start engaging. You're going like, hey, if you're listening to my show, I'd love for you to leave me a review or engage with my post or whatever. You start creating those conversations, and that all of a sudden just started because of two guys that had a mic, and we went for it.
I wanted to bring up a comment from the audience. LinkedIn user, I'm sorry, I don't know who it is, says, as someone who's just started my podcast, what you guys are sharing here is gold.
Okay,
Thank you for that.
LinkedIn user, let's give you some more gold. If you're just starting a podcast, make sure you have a website. They're inexpensive, but don't just use your hosting companies. Make sure every episode has its own individual page, and you're leveraging the value of SEO for each page as opposed to a whole long, here are all my episodes. Like, there's so many things from the organic side, simple things you can do to make sure that you're setting yourself up successfully and playing the compound interest game.
Yeah, and I think your point there about make sure every episode has an individual page. Clearly, when you've done 2 episodes, it doesn't matter. When you're like Tim and you end up, 5 years down the road having done 400 episodes, no one's ever going to scroll down. So they need to be individually accessible. And one of the things that when we work with clients, one of the things we get them to do is to cross-pollinate and make sure that this stuff is appearing on their social media, because it's just, so this for all of us is another post going out on our social media. So it's another touch point for our audience. We're going to be doing the live stream anyway. It's going to go out on YouTube. It's going to go out on Twitter. Actually, it wants to go out on all of our social platforms, just because sometimes somebody might go, oh, I wonder what Tim's got to say for himself, and listen to it. And they go, perfect.
Got a question for you, Greg.
Yeah.
If I was starting a podcast, do I need to get any specialized equipment? Cameras, microphones?
I mean, I guess the question I'll ask you is, how do I sound right now? Because I'm on a headphones, and from what I've heard when I've been on other shows and I've listened to it, the sound quality is decent.
It's okay, yes.
Yeah. So there's also tools. So like, there's hosting companies, there's tools out there that can clean it up for you if you want to go ahead and remove echo, the ums, and so forth. But I think I did the math. Like, if you looked at so we're using Restream right now. Use a simple website page builder. I'm a fan of Podpage. Hosting company. There's so many out there that you can look at. You're looking at maybe $100 a month. So call it $1,200 a year to just. You could do it cheaper if you want it, but just remember, if you're going cheap, you're gonna have to work harder and time and energy to make up for some of the values that you're getting from paying for it. But hey, there's easy ways to do it, whatever matters to you. And so if that's $1,200 a year with a compound interest on that, depending on what your business, you're like, I just want to go ahead and tell stories and I don't expect to make money. It's like, then great. Then $1,200, you can go ahead and do it. It's a good investment that creates conversations that you have no clue where. That goes back to your comment about I had the CEO come on my show. Like, you don't know where these conversations are going to go. So start having them. Start enjoying it. That goes back to, if you are a real estate agent who loves fly fishing, start a show about fly fishing. And your ICP is going to be people in your local area that you could potentially sell to. And so when they're in the needs of a home, then great. And it doesn't have to be anything about actual real estate. It could just be, how do I create human connections, have a conversation I want to do. And then people start knowing me as like, oh, this is the fly fishing real estate agent. Who knows? There's so many different ways to brand yourself, right?
So, Greg, back to the person who wants to start out or is just recently starting out. Why is 20 the magic number?
I don't know. You came up with that one.
I saw that, Rob, and I was thinking,
Yeah.
what on earth is that? I need to watch this show for that.
What was that? Like 20 different ways to monetize? Is that how we?
Oh no, that's different. 20
different.
being most podcasts don't make it to 20 episodes.
Actually, no, that was it. That's why we had this conversation. It's like, no, most podcasts don't make it past 10 episodes.
Yeah.
That's the truth. Is consistency is king. So let's go back to the compound interest piece. It's all about consistency. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just have to be consistent. You have to make the time, find the time. There's tools out there. Like if this was before 2023, I may be saying I may be able to be pushed back on what I'm saying. But with the technology out there now, the ease of use, the inexpensive of these tools, you have no reason not to be consistent. Finding guests, great, batch it, and that's another thing you can do. Like what happened? I mean, you're doing something live, so what happens if I cancel this morning? It's going to be the four of you guys doing it. So you do a solo episode, and there's still value to that, right? But like batch some things. There's ways to do this that are only going to help you in the long run. But yeah, get past those 10 episodes. Just keep doing it, and then you've got 50 or you've got 400 like Tim Scott, or you guys have been doing this for what 2.5, 3 years, whatever the case may be. So started with one
weekly business talk show on
there. You
LinkedIn
go.
Live. Started with one. You're right, and excuse me. So I think between creating the habit, the compound interest, and recognizing monetization is more than just direct revenue within 2 weeks of uploading. You've inspired me to take a look at some of the things that I'm doing already and some additional things that maybe we could be doing. So thank you for that.
Yes, been good.
I mean,
Really good.
Just start doing it. Figure out, I guess, get Windex clear on who you're trying to talk to and what you want to talk about, and know that your show can evolve. And the evolution is going to be based on you. Like one show that I love started off as a I don't know if I want to call it. It was mental health, self-help, but it was more about the guise of relationships. And then as his life changed and evolved, he's like, all right, like I'm past that point. Like I've healed during that conversation. So I'm now rebranding the show. It's still me, but we're going to put another spin on it. And if people are like, I still love what you have to say, I'm along for this ride because I've evolved as well, then great. You're going to keep your audience. Or they're like, you know what? I like your back catalog, not happy where you're going now. Perfect. Then that's your new ICP, and it's okay. You don't have to please everyone. Just start doing it. Just start talking.
I think your comment about it'll evolve is so important. You need to set sail in roughly the right direction, but beyond that, you don't know. You need to go with the wind, don't you? Because, like you said, you'll change, your audience will change, you'll learn along the way. Things that seemed impossible won't anymore. Things that seemed like that's the objective, you realise it's not the objective at all. Bit like life, really.
100%. There you go. There's your quote.
Indeed.
At 53, 24.
Noted. So when we go back and listen to it, yeah. When we go back and listen to it, that's the quote we pull for the front now. Is that
that's the bit you can beep out.
Yeah.
One thing that I've just found interesting is that the comment from LinkedIn user, that this is the person that's starting a podcast, which actually concerns me, not the person that's written it, but for us. Because I think if I went round and I said, did we all did we all say things that we thought were simple for people to understand? What that person has said is there's a few things that have gone over my head. So and so I'm pointing that out to us here on the panel, which is I wonder what that is, because there's a learning there, because we obviously need to be actually whatever we're saying is too far up. We need to be lowering it down or explaining certain things.
That's not aimed at you specifically, Greg, but
no,
it's not aimed at you. It's a learning for it's learning for me.
Yeah, for all of us.
All of us.
And I think you can go back to Adam's just kind of life. It's like what we're used to and the way we're used to explaining things seems normal for us. But you then put your perspective on, is another person understanding what I'm saying? Like, can they read my mind? Am I I don't want to say dumbing it down, because that's not the right thing. Am I putting into a language that is accessible for all? And that goes back to kind of the whole point of what I love about the repurposing thing is, instead of having a person just listen, repurposing that content now allows different learners to engage with your content in a different way. And for you to figure out, how do I repurpose this content in a way that each different kind of user could want it? And there's easy ways to do that. Back to this person. Yeah, I'm really curious, like, what is over the head? But I think that's a conversation we can have, happy to have, and understand, like, all right, what do I have to verbalize that will make this easier?
Yeah. How many episodes should a new podcast have to get out of the red line? And is there an ideal number of episodes a season should have?
Like it.
I hate this question, because you're still thinking get out of the red line. So there's so many different ways to monetize your show. So the question becomes, what does your red line mean to you? If I'm doing a show, let's go to Tim's case. And it's like, if I'm having these conversations with my ICP, what is the average time for you to close a sale based on the ICP coming in there? Or is it the conversations that you're having, not just with the person who you want to sell to, but all your community, and how long it takes going, like, oh, Tim would know, like, you know what, after 5 episodes of a conversation with one person, I usually get a community person who heard my conversation and opens the door. I know the sales cycle. So, like, you just think about that. If I'm thinking red line in terms of how many downloads and therefore I can start selling ads to make back the $1,200, that's still a limiting belief of what a podcast is going to give you. So get out of the red line. There's too many ways to monetize, whether you're selling your coaching services, whether you're selling sponsorship, and then ideal number of episodes a season. So from a season standpoint, clearly you guys don't do seasons. You guys are just the longest continuous. So it depends on what kind of your show is and what the content is. Ideally, always keep going. But if you're like, I'm going to do 20 episodes and then break it up into another season, there's so many different ways to skin a cat on that one. It really depends on what your show is.
Maintaining the momentum, though, isn't it, Greg? It's keeping the nose up. It's like, okay, so just doing the show is one thing. Thinking about the content ahead of time is another thing. Thinking about the audience is another thing. And actually carving out the time needed to focus on all of the things that support that momentum.
100%.
Yeah.
Andrew shares with us, it may not be a case of dumbing down as long as you're not making the topic too technical or using too much jargon. You will find a good balance. The rest is down to the audience member to find out more information about the subject in question.
Good point.
It is a give and take, but it's awesome feedback because it is a give and take, and we were not taking, we were just giving. So it's good to understand that there's more that we could be talking about as well.
Close out the show, Rob.
Oh, is it that time already? Thank you. Yes. All right. Greg, any last thoughts?
No, thank you, gentlemen. I mean, this has been fun.
Thanks, Greg. It's been awesome. Yeah. Thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you guys for proving the point. Just put a mark in, see where this goes, and look at all the different offshoots that this is provided to you that you probably didn't think about 3 years ago when you started.
Yeah. And on that note, Rob, are you going to upload this into Cast Magic?
Greg, how can people follow up with you? How can they get in touch with you? How can they hear more from you?
LinkedIn is my social of choice. I know I should be on Twitter. We've talked, but I'm just not a Twitter person. So LinkedIn, Greg Wasserman, simple. And then email is greg@castmagic.io.
Awesome. This has been another episode of the Digital Download. If you liked what you heard, if you have something to say, we'd love to have you on as a guest. digitaldownload.live under Be Our Guest, or scan the QR code on screen. Greg, thank you very much.
Thank you very
Adam,
much.
Thanks,
Alex,
Greg.
Tim, as always, thank you for
Thanks,
another
everybody.
fantastic episode. Thank you to our audience for the engagement, and we'll see you again next week.